All right, welcome to the 96 Person Bringer podcast. I am your host, Bryan Stoops. From the age of 7 until I was 24, I was a professional magician in Southern California. Then I spent the next about 21 years focusing on courting my wife, marrying my wife, raising our 2 kids, deeply, intensely studying the martial arts, and being a professional educator. A few years ago, I started stand-up comedy. I've had some interesting results along the way. That brings us to the 96 Person Bringer podcast, where I have insightful hour-long conversations with my comedian friends. I knew when I started this whole thing, I knew this person would eventually be a guest on here. It was just a matter of when. We met at an open mic, and then we saw each other again sometime after that at like a showcase show at a comedy club, and sort of reconnected, reestablished our connection at that point. She's been on several of my shows. I've been on some of her shows as well. She's like producer extraordinaire, really, creating shows everywhere she can, getting up as much as she can all over New York City. And I don't think I'm like overestimating. We're colleagues, and we've also developed this really, really nice friendship. So I'm really looking forward to talking with her. Our guest tonight is Zoe Rosenberger. Hi, Zoe.
Levy. I just changed it.
What's that?
I just changed my name to Zoe Levy.
I didn't know that.
Sorry, I should have updated you. It's totally fine.
We have a whole stage name update.
Yeah, Zoe Levy. When we met, it was my first week of mics, and I was absolutely awful. And you gave me like the nicest advice. Like, I didn't meet that many great people in the open mic scene that first week, but like you stood out as someone who was genuinely like, yeah, like if it doesn't go well, say like you gave me like outs, like you sort of knew in the kindest way. You were like, address it, address it. And I really appreciated that. So it was so funny when we saw each other at that that showcase then, right, like months later, when I was like, decent, not great, but decent, not horrible.
For sure. And we're always, I think, we're always trying to get better, and we always have off nights. Were you doing material about nannying, like even at that mic?
Yeah. But it was about like an embarrassing incident, like one embarrassing incident, one story, making it go over 5 minutes. And then my first like tightish 5 or 7 for the showcase was like nannying, right. That's always, but I remember watching people's faces during that showcase going, they want to hear about my sex life. Like, they're bored. Like, they don't want to hear about me.
Move on to the sex stuff.
My frustrations with these fucking children, Oh, can I not swear? Is it fine?
No, it's fine. It's okay. We'll just mark it that's what's going on. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. So no, you get comfortable, and just like comedy, however you want to talk is however you want to talk. So we are going to move into our first segment. So 15 minutes. Again, there's no pressure. The timer just kind of keeps us. We try to keep episodes to about an hour. We want to know your story, your history as a comedian, your journey, and then kind of like what you're up to now. Anything else that you want to promote. We will circle back to how everybody can follow you on social media and all that good stuff at the end of the episode as well. But this is like 15 minutes. I had my little intro, but here's 15 minutes. Like, tell us your story and tell us what's going on with you and comedy.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So I love that I can see the timer. That's very helpful. So my background. So I teased my parents in my early 20s after graduating college, because I was like, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to become a legal research, law professor. And I worked at a law firm for 1.5 years, and I studied for the LSAT for 1.5 years. And then I just was like, my boss is great and I'm so bored and I don't want to go into this profession. Like most of the people I don't like, I just met too many law students and lawyers and I was like, I don't want these to be my colleagues for the rest of my life, like no shade against lawyers, but like, some of them suck. And I thought about it. I was like, oh, like in undergrad, I love my philosophy professors, like not my legal, like they were kind of difficult, my legal research, and also I realized that there's only 200 laws. I've identified there's 200 law schools in the US versus like 4,000 colleges and universities. So I was like, oh, as a law professor, I'd be so much more beholden to potentially, it's so hard, to get into academia to begin with. But I was like, okay, legal academia is not for me. And it's also like pretty inaccessible. It's like the upper echelon of society gets to go to law school. Whereas I feel like it's more middle class college, even though it's ridiculously expensive. So then I teased my parents by going to Columbia and acting like I was going to become a philosophy professor for 2 years. And then I was like, you know what, this doesn't come naturally to me. Like before I went to grad school, I got interested in comedy when I heard that the basis for a lot of comedy is outrage. And I went, oh, I'm outraged a lot. And I guess if I'm funny, people will actually listen to me and my outrage. So that's sort of where this came from. It's like very much to have a voice. It's not just like, honestly, I'm not that interested in entertaining people. I just know I need to as a part of the job, that you need to be and I just think we'll get into that later, I feel like. But so I've been doing comedy since it's really awkward. My open mic anniversary date is Juneteenth.
Oh, wow.
It's horrible. It was just like a day my friend who does open mics was like off and was like willing to go, like off of work. And so like we hung out before, we went over my bad set that you saw me run at the end of that week. Like we met on a Saturday and my first open mic was on a Monday. And then I do like open mic Tuesday at not QED. What's the other Queens one?
What's the name of that place?
You know what I'm talking
about? I know the one you mean. I can't think of the place.
It was like a late night mic, and there were rows in the front who were like weaponizing their laughter. Like they were laughing, but I was like, I feel horrible. And I took Wednesday off because some older gentleman took me out to 11 Madison Park. Nothing happened, on the record. He offered. I didn't have to do anything. And so I had to take Wednesday off, but I was sort of like, oh, this is valuable. And then I did a mic Thursday. I did 2 mics Friday, and then I met you. I did 2 mics Saturday, and I met you Saturday at Eastville. And like the first mic, it was great because you were there, and other people, and Roe v. Wade had just been overturned that Friday. Everyone did a very funny riff on it, very funny, everyone was like doing really good material, like people who were actually experienced comics. And I was just like running my anal, my like anally foot set, it's like, I have to get this down. And so I remember the 3:30 was lovely. It was diversity. And the 5:30, it was like all white men, or mostly white men. It was all men in the room. And I got like, a dude did the most inappropriate, the same thing that comic did on your show that was inappropriate. That sort of question where you're like, you shouldn't be inquiring about this, like that is just so inappropriate. I'm going to get back on track, my comedy journey. So I bombed horribly my first showcase. I think it's absolutely insane that these comedy classes, like just to name names, Manhattan Comedy School, it's absurd that they have you do like 6 weeks of classes, like 6 sessions with the teacher. And then the teacher like doesn't have the time to like they put 20 of you in a class. The teacher does not have the time to allow one, to like actually help you craft something worth doing in front of like 100 people. And they encourage all these 20 people to bring at least like 5 people. Like you don't have to, but everyone brings like 5 people, or if not more. So then it ends up being like 120 to 150 people in a room where like you're supposed, like it's absurd. I think it's so horrible that they like have you do the showcase so quickly. Like I think
and that was your first
Yeah, it was my first
experience though?
Yeah, it was horrible. Like I forgot lines, I forgot the good punchlines, not there were many, like the comics in the back, they liked me, so they started laughing, even though there was nothing to laugh at. It was like pity laugh, it was horrible. And I think it's a real testament to my fortitude that I kept going. The truth is, the first class, I didn't really understand what was being asked of me. It wasn't really, I didn't, like my teacher, she was cool, but she was like, I don't really have a formula. It's sort of like, you feel it out. And like,
Mm.
You know, she was like, that's gonna be gold. Like they need you to be confident, but they don't like tell you the reality because they need you to do the showcase because
Uh-huh.
they make money off you doing the showcase. You know, so it's I personally hate how capitalistic comedy is. Like I'm in comedy for like social change, but I understand how much it depends on how many seats you can fill, you
Sure.
know, like your early success or honestly your later success. It was put to me so crassly at an open mic my first week at the Broadway mic. This woman was like, you think Amy Schumer is like selling out, is performing at Madison Square Garden because she has big titties? No, it's because she fills seats. This is a bringer industry. And just like realizing like, oh shit, yeah, like it's not even like you should be funny, but it's not even about that. It's about filling seats. It's about like giving the venue its, you know, the requisite number. So that's I try to not get bitter about it because the whole world revolves. I like look at things. I'm like, things like this makes no sense, but only because of capitalism is this happening. You know, I'm like, this is so wasteful. We're just hurtling toward environmental catastrophe because of the system under which we live. It's very frustrating.
So how do you then, you have that experience,
Oh yeah.
you're doing things all the time. And I mean, like you've gotten into a lot of great venues.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on
But
it in your comedy club this Saturday. I'm super excited.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So walk me through that very
I got
difficult
there.
showcase to like where you find yourself today.
So the owner of the school saw me do horribly and he like had me walk out and he was like, they just couldn't hear you, which is bullshit. I like asked my friend, I was like, could you hear me? She was like, yeah. Like he like lied to me and was like, and then was like, oh, you do book research? Like if you help me with my book, I'll give you a free class. And I'm like pretty broke. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds fair. You know? So that's an experience we shouldn't get into. It was very creepy, but uh yeah, I'm sure people who like know the comedy world are like, I know what you're talking about. But anyway, yes, in the second class, I took it very seriously and I was going to open mics, not enough. I was doing like 2 or 3 a week. And my good friend Greg was like, you're not, you know, like if you want to improve, you gotta like, do a bunch. You know, it's very true. Like there's no substitute for stage time. That's really, there's no other way to get better. I mean, you have to spend time punching stuff up and ordering it and writing, of course, but you need to get comfortable on stage. And I don't think you're going to be funny or sound like yourself the first 50 times or 6 months, depending how much you do it. You know, like I feel like I started to sound like myself like 3 to 5 months in, you know, and I only feel like I found my voice in the last 2 months. And I know I'm very lucky to have found, to feel as if I found my voice in the first 2 years, you know, but I also know that my humanities background gives me this like perspective of like this like macro perspective of the world that most people like. I was so lucky to get to study philosophy and get to study like critical theory and social theory and political theory that like I spent a lot of time trying to understand how the world works, like why things are the way they are, you know, like what are ethics, like just the most basic that like it's not useful to our capitalist world. Like most people don't get to spend it. So I know that I'm very, and I also went to such a hippie undergraduate institution, Hampshire College, that like everything was like race politics, class politics, gender politics, you know, sexuality. Like, so I just was like steeped in that. And then I went to Columbia and I was like, oh my God, like this is what a real education, this is what like, you know, it was just like, yeah, I'm very fortunate to have the humanities background, but I have no acting experience. I have no theater experience, which is, you know, like the theater kids, my friend who's a theater kid was like, yeah, you're like, as a theater kid, you're the best for like the first 6 months. And then you start to lag behind, you know? So, but I know there's questions that, yeah. So, so I took it very seriously and I did very well on my showcase. Like for me, you know, like I sent it to my mentor and he was like, it was fine.
Right.
Like I really appreciate people who don't bullshit me, you know? Like the issue is like when like someone like doesn't do well and you get off and you're like, great job. Like everyone wants to tell you did a great job. And when they're like, yeah, pretty good. And you're like, oh, that was your standard. You know, that's like, okay, you're never gonna improve if you're not like, I need to be killing. Like I remember not doing that well this summer at Room 52 and my friend Jack like getting off after. And he was like, that was good. And I was like, no, it's fine. He was like, yeah, it was fine. Like you have to hold yourself accountable to how you're really doing. And sometimes it's the crowd, but sometimes it's you know, and you also need to identify that. Like I didn't do well at a modern Orthodox Jews, all modern Orthodox Jews, and they're all virgins. And I didn't know that going in. And my material right now is very pro-sex, you know? So they were like, we don't relate. Like they were like, this Jewish girl is very secular. But yeah, so background. Yeah, so I started really, I feel like what really changed for me, or really what helped me gain comfort, is hosting an open mic.
Okay.
My first open mic that I hosted, I guest hosted New Year's Eve, because Ruben, you know, my friend Ruben didn't want to, like, was busy, right? New Year's Eve. Like it was like 3 p.m. on a Saturday. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I remember realizing how much work it was.
Oh.
Thinking about wanting to host one and not really getting to until I went to my friend Chrissy's new talent showcase and like seeing Felicia and then emailing Felicia like mid-January being like, yes, I would love to host a mic. Like, I loved your comedy. Da, da, da. And she was like, yes, okay, great. You know, so she's like, yeah, pick a time slot. So I figured, so I was like, I looked at the schedule and I was like, Wednesday at 3, like I'm going to Victoria, you know, there's like one mic that I don't love. I'm like, so why don't I start my own mic that time? You know, and a mic really attracts the people, you know, the host of the mic really attracts the people who come to the mic. I had such a fun mic today. It was 15 comics. I love like 14 of them dearly, you know, or 13 of them dearly. You know, of course, there's always a couple. You're like, oh, okay, you know, yes, I'm providing a space for you, but I don't have to really be subjected to this. 5 minutes of my life chipped away at a time. Yeah. So that, I feel like that was a turning point. Like February 1st was my first open mic that I hosted, and it was light at first. It sucked, you know, it wasn't great. Like I remember like desperately telling the comics like, come to my mic, you know, because I was trying to make it like there'd be like 5 of us, and then we do 2 rounds of 5 though, and it was like kind of a blessing. And actually, my mic is not, it's on purpose, not on Bad Slava, because I don't want the whole world to know about it. You know, like Sonia Blackhat was like, when I was in Korea, she's like, and I was like, no, like I'm not trying to do that. So yeah, I feel like hosting the mic really, and also I lucked out. It was just luck. Like my neighbor who I nanny for, ironically enough, know Ben and Michelle, you know this couple, this producer couple, and was like, talk to them, and gave me her number, and I call her, and she's like, and like this was sometime in like early September. She's like, yeah, like October 9th, you know, come through, like come do my bar show, right? And because of, and I didn't do, you know, I didn't do enough time. I was nervous. I was so new. Like I did well at the showcase, but I couldn't handle a bar show yet. You know, like that's a beast. You have to be a good comic to handle that. And then I met Eugene, my co-producer, and he was like, oh yeah, like come do my, you live on the Upper East, come do my show in the Upper East. Like it doesn't always get a crowd. So I like to get comics who don't have to trek, you know? So I was very, so I did his October show. And then he invited me back to the November one. I remember being so polite and excited. Like I came in a day early. I was gonna like stay in Terry, you know, like being like, yes, I'd love to. Thank you so much for thinking of me. And like I came to the city a day early. I put on makeup. I put on a crop top. I went down to my bar show, you know, 76 and Second, and there was no one. And they were like, we're gonna call the show. And I was like, no. And he's like, unless you want to bark. And I was like, yeah, I'm not like below barking at all, like above barking at all. Like I will definitely bark. And I go outside and I bark, and it's just creepy men who come up and are like, you're on the lineup. I'd love to. And they don't even come in. Like I like end up like at the bar, like I beg a few nurses. I'm like, please, I put on mascara and a crop top, and they got it. They were like, yeah, girl, okay. So they came to the back and they watched the show. And because of that, Eugene was like, shit, maybe I need a co-producer. He's like, want to co-produce? And I was like, let me think about it. And like a couple of days later, I was like, yeah, I'll do it, you know? And I like December, like I like reached out to like everyone I knew. I was like, please come to my show. And it was like packed. It became a standing room. And like, frankly, I didn't book strong enough for that. You know, I know I lost some people for that. Like, cause I didn't know how, I'm so grateful that I know so much more about producing. Like producing is such an art form, you know? That I really like it was really just chance that like I got connected to these 2 producers. I met Eugene. He had, you know, like it was really just like luck, like, you know, because that like I have so much fun at I had it last night, my bar show. Like I didn't last night because I was trying to run my set in your comedy club, but like in general, I can just write on stage, you know, like even if it's like 4 people, I have so much fun with it because I'm comfortable in the space, you know, like you connect with the people, and that's great. Yeah, I just started a new mic Monday. It's not great yet. Help me get it great. Monday, Whiskey Cellar, 8 p.m.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah.
One thing I'd love to promote, I'm producing a show at the Whiskey Cellar Sunday, November 26th, tail end of November, Thanksgiving break, with Andre Mitchell. It's a very interesting battle of the sexes style. So it's not a roast, but we have 3 sets of comics, male and female, who are going to run their sets, and the audience gets to decide which one they preferred. I think at the end, like I think they're going to tally it and they'll announce it all at the end, you know. So that's super exciting. You know, that's like, like he had the idea, like I approached him about producing, but he had the idea, and like, we're very happy. It's Mika Mo versus Adam Mueller. We're hoping Sonia Bai, we haven't secured her yet, against Crenshaw White, and then Humza Chowdhury against Sarah Barnett. So that's our first show. So we're very excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure for everybody watching and listening, we'll make sure we have all of Zoe's information in the text underneath either the podcast download or the YouTube video, wherever you might be watching or listening, so that everybody can make sure they go to that show. That sounds awesome, and know about Zoe's mics. So some questions then, and like I try to not, unless there's something that I just can't, like I try not to editorialize after every, you know, question, after every answer, like just because it's your episode. And so we're just gonna kind of roll merrily right.
I'm an only child. I love this.
Yeah, so I mean, it's perfect. It's like I already did my episode. That was the first episode where I did both jobs, and it's like that episode is there. So now I get to talk.
I'm gonna go back and watch that. That sounds
cool.
fascinating.
And now I get to talk to my friends and hear their answers to these questions. So who are your comedic influences, and what do they mean to you? And it certainly doesn't just have to be stand-up comedy. I mean, this is whatever you'd like to talk about.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So my biggest comedic influence would have to be George Carlin. Like, I love how he understood, like, for me, the potential of comedy is like the power to change our social worlds, you know, to get people to see things with a new perspective. I think that's so valuable. Or so like I just know there's like the whatever, we'll get to that later. Comedic influence, yeah, Carlin. I love the way he like critiqued the war, you know, like war efforts. Like he really like was like, what are we doing in society? Like he really was able to like look at something. But I would like I watched one of his specials like a year ago, and I remember being like, wow, the first 20 minutes he's going into like the war, you know, like he's like going into how fucked up this is, like what we're doing to these people, you know. And then the middle 20 minutes he's doing stupid observational humor just to keep him there. He's like, you ever like go into a room and you forgot what you have to go back, like it's so stupid. And then he closes his last 20 minutes are like powerful social stuff, and I love that like he understands that he has to balance that, you know. And he has a very interesting career path that I read his autobiography, and it's very last words. I highly recommend it. I don't have time to get into it, but well, it's funny. I will for a second. It's so funny. He went into stand-up because he thought it would help him become a movie star. And he was like playing to the mainstream audience for years to please his mother in part and to get on movies. And then he sort of did, and he was like, I was never a good actor, you know, like it was never my craft, you know, which I feel that way too. Like I don't want to. Like, I feel like I'm going to only do like film or TV if I have to get an audience, but I'm trying to not have to. That's sort of my goal. Like, I don't want to have to do that bullshit Hollywood scene. You know, I just want to like be a pure stand-up, pure, like Anthony Jeselnik. That is, I love Anthony Jeselnik. I love how his jokes are self-contained. I love how it's economy of words, but also his comedy doesn't have what Carlin does. He doesn't, it's like a vacuum, you know, like it doesn't reflect, like we both know his jokes, you know, like it's beautifully dark, it's beautifully written, it's fucked up, you know. It's not meant to like influence your moral sensibilities for the better. It's not going to hurt them, you know, but like, I mean, if you're a bad person it'll hurt them, but like you're already bad, I don't know. So yes, I love Anthony Jeselnik. Like I love what he's like, it's so funny, but it's like that's pure comedy, that's pure entertainment, you know, like, and it's so well done. I love how he doesn't waste your time. I love, you know, he talked about how like he has this killer joke about his killer joke, 30-second joke, perfect joke. And he did it at a comedy festival, and all these other comics were like, oh my God, such a good joke. You can make that 5 minutes. That 30-second joke could be 5 minutes. And he was like, why would I do that to people? Like, that is the perfect joke. Why would I waste their time? Like, I love how he like respects our time, you know? He's like, I love how he like punches, and that's what I'm honestly trying to do, but it is socially, you know, reflecting. Right. But that's what I'm trying to do. Like I like punch, like joke. Yeah. So another influence, pretty recently, Sarah Silverman. I watched her Jesus is Magic special, and I found it so great. It didn't age well, but I love it as a comic. I'm like, that's hilarious. We talked about it a little bit. Yeah. I love how she's controversial and she's unapologetic. I love Mark Maron. He's an exceptional comic. He's like, I feel like with his last special, he said like he's finally figured out how to say what he's been trying to say since the beginning of his career. And I love how he's very much like up on anti-Semitic, you know, like the way he's culturally critiquing is in Carlin's legacy, you know, and I really appreciate that. But then at the end of the day, like Jesselnick's a pure joke writer. Like Mark will find like funny, you know, Maron will find funny in the story, and Jesselnick will just write a joke that's fun, you know, yeah. So it's different, but I'm definitely trying to be more like Carlin and Maron than Jesselnick, but I really admire Jesselnick's joke writing. And Catherine McKinnon,
Yeah.
legal feminist like scholar, that she dedicated her life to like helping women, and I really admire her for that. Like she pioneered the sexual harassment as a legal concept, as a harm that women, you know, that ought to be. She's exceptional. She's like defended victims of genocide, you know, like rape and genocide and all that. She really like, she didn't have a family. She hasn't had kids. Like she's just a like she's made such a difference. She's given so many great speeches, she's written so many great articles. Like I wanted to be like that, but for like the other animals. And then I was like, oh, but like people don't read. I need to, yeah. We'll get into that later.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. I know I said I wasn't gonna, you named a couple people that I really admire for sure. Absolutely. So we're gonna move right along, and again, there will be some overlap, and I mean you've already talked about some, and it's totally fine, right? So don't feel like, oh, I already said that. I mean, this is a conversation, and so if we circle back, double back, it doesn't really matter. But about 5 minutes in general, we know doing stand-up is hard. So why do you do it?
Because there's pathos to it, like I said before, but like there's so much, people's guards are let down when they laugh. It's unique, you know, like I know that people will be more like feminism, like I remember like years ago watching this boy I was briefly seeing right after college. We were watching one of her specials, and she has this great joke about how like being catcalled on the street and being like fuck you, but then the second you turn you're like, oh, I hope he doesn't kill me. You know, you're like, oh. And like she made it so funny, and it made me cry, you know, like because I really related to that, you know. But like that was just so incredible to be like, wow, it affected him. He was like, oh shit, like he was a good guy, but like he never like it. I just like there's so much pathos. It's really about pathos. When people's guards are let down with the laugh, they are going to be more receptive to an idea than a speech or an argument. Unfortunately, like I spent so much time like arguing, and comedy really is arguing. If you think about it, it's really just making an argument funny. Like it's really just arguing a point. Yeah, stand-up's hard. Everything's hard. But yeah, it's, I mean, I grew up horseback riding, where it's like focus on 12 things but smile. You know, like make it look easy. Like we shouldn't be knowing how much you're focusing on, and that's exactly how stand-up is. So I love it.
Nice. All right. So just again, we will kind of continue, and the timers are the time and blah, 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 but for sure, we're going to move forward. So what is your process, as well as you can describe it, for writing and sculpting material? Yeah.
So honestly, I feel very fortunate that I'm able to generate material without forcing myself to sit down. Like I know Seinfeld's like write for 20 minutes a day, you know, but I'm like, I come up with so much in a day. Like my problem is like making the time to go back and go through everything I've written and punch it up enough. Because I come up with joke premises all the time. Like I was literally on the bus on my way home here, and and this girl is on the phone, and I was like, it's pretty obnoxious on the phone, like this blonde privileged upper, you know, I'm coming from the Upper West, Upper East, I'm like, this fucking bitch, you know, I'm like, I know your type, but I'm like, but she's being quiet, she's not actually talking that much. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I think like I've been there where like your friend needs to talk to you, she's going through it, and you're like, okay, yeah, tell me. Yeah. And you're like, I'm not gonna talk that much. Like, you know, I thought that was that. And then I heard her and I wrote it down because it's such a ridiculous line. Yes, I do. Because when I had the panic attack and was hospitalized, that was when we were at St. Christopher's. Like that is such a privilege, you know. I'm like, that's so funny. But like I really should get better at compiling stuff, because I do have all these notes where it's like over on the Upper East Side. Like you hear the most ridiculous shit, but that's not what my material is that much about. But yeah, I feel very fortunate that like you know, when I do yoga, I bring a journal with me so I can like jot down. Like I used to not, and then I was like trying to hold like 3 to 12 thoughts in my head, and it was super stressful, and it wasn't all restorative. So yeah, so I feel very fortunate that like I don't have to force myself to sit down, and like comedy academia didn't come naturally to me. Like I had to take Adderall and Vyvanse to write a great paper. You know, I don't have to with comedy. It hurts if I take it, you know, like it just, but I need to make the time, and I do make the time before mics of sitting down, I'm very fortunate. I will write things in my notes app, and it's connected to my computer, and I'll have a Microsoft Word document next to it, and I'll go through what I've written, and I'll pull out what's pertinent, and then in the Word doc, I'll order it and punch it up, you know? So that's how I do it. That's my process. But I feel like ordering matters so much, and I need to spend more time working on the ordering of jokes, because I feel like I know they would hit stronger if I spent more time. I do, but I just don't. I just feel like I never spend enough. I need to start blocking out time in my calendar of being like, this is time to just do your shit, to like focus on the craft. You know, like I know that I'm letting great joke ideas pass me by, and it's a problem.
Got it. I was going to ask you what your logistics were, but you kind of covered it right at the end there. I'm always curious.
Yeah.
You know, do you use your phone? Do you use a notebook? Do you computerize? Yeah.
I'm not as good as I should be about getting what I write into the notes. I was like in January, I had my shit together. I'm trying to get back there. Okay, I was sober in January. Now I'm sober again. So like, I'm gonna get back there soon. And I have something very fortunate, which is the truth is I wanted to do stand up for 2 years before I did it. Right. I heard the outrage thing. I was interested, but I was like so afraid of bombing, like as a woman and like as like a bourgeois woman. Like we're not supposed to go out there and like express our emotions. Like that's very, you know, it's a faux pas. So yeah, so I have this document that's literally 35 pages. It's not comedy. It's just like outrage. Then I'm like, that could be funny, but none of them are punchlines because I know how to write a joke. So I haven't gone back to it because I don't need to, but I definitely will one day. And like that's what comics I admire say. They're like maybe it was like I forget who, like maybe Joan River. I don't know, maybe not. Where they're like a file. I think no, it was George Carlin. It was George Carlin. He was like, file everything away. Like I have a, you know, like this huge thing, and I look, you know, and like I'll go back like years later, like, oh my God, this was a great joke premise, you know, like so I sort of feel like I had this trove for if I run out and my life gets too busy to generate, that I can like go back and be like, oh, that's good, and I know now how to punch it up. Like Marin interviewed Patton Oswalt, and Oswalt was like, for like I feel like now I'm finally able to do things that I wanted to do, but I just didn't know how. So I like looked.
35 pages of outrage. I love
it. No jokes yet.
So would you, and again, you've already done some of this, but like what's something you're working on right now in your comedy? Is it a bit, a skill, marketing? Are you working on your hour? Like what's going on right now in your practice?
Yeah. So I'm always working on bits. I'm always adding to them and trying to like, sometimes I'll like come up with one line and I'll be like, what should I grow out of this? And I'll be like, oh shit, this is actually what's going to start another joke that I already have very polished. You know, I'm like, oh, like this just happened the other day where I'm like, and I'm going to do it in your comedy club Saturday. And I'm like I practiced it today. I practiced it last night at the show where I'm like, okay, like this joke that was a good joke. It's even stronger if I do this funny line at the top that if I do, it's funny, but it's not funny enough, but now it like has legs, you know? So that makes me happy. So yeah, I'm always working on stuff. Right now, I'm very conscientiously trying to work on a few things. I honestly have a list of like things I need to improve, or honestly classes I need to take, because I have no acting abilities. I have no act out abilities. I'm very rigid, and I don't dance. I'm too Jewish, you know, like I never learned how to dance. Like I know this is a disadvantage, you know, for me on stage. Like
you're, sorry to interrupt. Are you still taking improv?
Right. So I'm halfway through right now, UCB Improv 101. And I definitely pissed off the teacher day one by being like, I'm doing this to get better at stand-up. She was like, I fucking hate you. She's like, that's not what it's for. So she doesn't like me, but it's fine because I'm learning. I want to take honestly, I want to, this is so embarrassing, but I know I need to take clowning class so I can learn how to emote with my body because I'm not good at that. But like this comic in the scene, like open mic scene, he's so funny because has clowning abilities because he's a clowning coach where he like knows how to be like, "Rah," which I don't like. I took one acting class when I was 14 as part of a Putney summer travel. Like it was like bullshit, you know? And I remember thinking my lines were really funny and being really pissed when I performed them at like the final show and like no one was laughing. And I was like, what? I was trying to make this funny. Like I took it very seriously. So yeah, I want to take acting, I want to take dance, I want to take clowning. I need to keep taking, I'm going to take a second improv and then I think I'm going to call it. Just learn their philosophy and get out. Yeah, the improv world's weird, but not the stand-up world's not. But like, there's a fifth thing, but clowning, acting, character work. That's what I want to get into. Character work, because and we did that in class the other day and it came so naturally to me. Like I jumped in the middle and I was like, my name's Delilah and my best friend is Ashley and yeah, she's a bitch, no one likes Ashley. And I was like, oh, I can make fun of people like by like embodying them. Like I sound too mean because I love ripping into people, but like it's so much better if I like, and this is what I love about philosophy, was an immanent critique where you get into the logic in order to undo it, right? And that's what character work is if you're really critique, you know. So I wanted, yeah, so that's the last one. I have no marketing abilities, I'm gonna be honest. Like I'm able to write like a nice Insta post, but I have no idea how to do that. Like how to promote an Eventbrite, all I have is like a lot of social capital, a strong network of people. It's not that organized. Like this morning in yoga, I was literally like writing down, I was like, invite Stacy to the show on the 26th, you know, where you're just like, you have to invite like 100 people to get 20 to show up. You know, I know that, like, but it's so frustrating because then when you invite those 100 people, the 80 who can't make it are like, oh my God, I can't make it. But like, how are you? And you're like, I don't have time. Like, I'm sorry. Like you're trying to not look like an asshole. Be like, no, but this like worked for me. Like, and for me, I feel like honestly, my shows are like with my people, like bringing, like, I don't want to waste their time. Like for me, it's like maintaining a brand, you know, where I'm like, I need all the comics to be up to a certain standard. Where, you know, because like I've produced, like I didn't know at the beginning, you know, that you burn social capital if you don't produce, if you don't book strong, you know. So I'm trying to get a third show going right now. I have a co-producer. We're figuring out the best venue. We're like at the best. We have like a backup and a backup and a backup and a backup. So we're waiting to hear back from the best one. And yeah.
Nice. All right. So we are gonna move right along again. Would you describe, and again, you might have already spoken to some of this, but would you describe any positive milestone in your comedy experience? And you can certainly talk about more than one if you would like to.
Yeah, when I felt like I really feel like there's phases. I know that there's phases of stand-up. Like there's a phase where you like don't know what the fuck you're doing and you're just like on stage trying, you know, like you're like blinded, you're like stressed, you don't know how to take care. It was like this in grad school. I didn't know how to take care of myself at first. Like I was sitting all day, you know, in grad school, like I wasn't feeding myself, like I wasn't like I didn't know how to like hydrate myself well enough. I feel I know how to take care of myself in the open mic scene at shows. Like you're just so fucking stressed before a show, like you're sweating, like you're, you know, like it's just bad, like at the beginning. And you just have to work through that. You just have to keep doing it until you're like, okay, I got it. You know, but it takes so many steps. And I could sketch them out, but it'd take too long. But there's a point where you're like literally tied to your script. You know this, you know, where you can't deviate and like it doesn't land, you don't know how the fuck to deal with it. You just keep going. Like they're not buying it, you just keep going, you know. And then there's a certain point where you luckily build up enough material that like when I go to the show Saturday, I'm gonna say to the host and be like, what are they like? What's the crowd like? Are they old? Are they tourists? You know, okay, if they're old, I'm gonna do more dirty. They like dirty because they can't, but they love it. You know, like there's certain like tricks that you learn that's like so valuable. Like modern Orthodox Jews, okay, I want to turn, you know, like shit like that. Yeah, but so there's having enough material, but then there's also having the ability to react to them reacting. which is being
Mhm.
present. And like I developed that at Iggy's. I lovingly call it my crappy bar show because that's what it is, you know. But I learned so much there. You know, I learned how to write on stage because I'm comfortable. I learned how to react to them react, which is funny because you're actually engaged and in the moment. And, you know, I never try to pander or capitulate to the audience, but you have to tailor your material for them. Like you have to do the jokes. Like I was in the Poconos and I did a joke and I did like they weren't like fully buying what I was selling. And I did this joke where I say, and it's an all black audience, and I say, I never did a football player. And then I go, it's not a white one. And that was such a like sellout line where I was like, that's not true. I wouldn't date any football player. Doesn't matter if he's white or black, you know, like I'll date like any race if they're like my type, you know, but like, and like I talked to, because I was an opener, I talked to the guy who like, you know, I was opening for after, and he was like, no, that was good. Like black guy. He was like, no, that was good. Like you were pandering. I was like, I don't want to pander though. You know, he's like,
Right.
you're playing into the stereotype of like white women with black guys. And I was like, yeah. And I felt dirty. The second I felt like it wasn't genuine to me. Like I was doing it, but like I felt bad about it. I think they could tell that it wasn't, you know, like
Hmm.
I really love stand up for like its authenticity. You know, really, I feel so much more self-actualized actually because of doing stand up. And I feel like it's like broken down like a certain like shame barrier. Like if you bomb enough, like just like a person on the street can't embarrass you. You know?
Right.
You're like, no, I bombed in front of 150 people before. Like this is fine. I don't give a shit what you think of me. This is the great anonymous city. I'm never gonna see you again. If I do, fuck you. You know, like it's fine.
Yeah.
So I really do feel like stand-ups helped me become more of a person, more of a self-actualized person.
That's awesome. Our next question is sort of the opposite. And again, there may be a little bit of overlap with what you've already spoken to. It doesn't really matter. Would you describe a time that you learned an important comedy lesson by having a negative experience?
So many, so many. Where do we start? How negative can we go? No, I'm kidding. It's really hard. Uh, I remember sort of wanting to at the beginning, like Ruben sort of like reined me in, was like because I just because there's this like we like me and all these other people used to be like there were cliques. There's cliques at his mic, you know, and it's very competitive. And like I just sort of feel like I felt when I went and they went, like we, you know, sort of giving it up. Everyone's giving it up. People go, but like not these groups, not me in these groups. I knew they didn't like me, you know, and I knew that things weren't landing, and I felt like it was misogyny, to be honest. Like I felt like I was a difficult woman and they didn't want to fucking hear it. And I remember the first joke I landed for them, I wrote for them, which is, well, yeah, of course I'm concerned with losing my youth because then I'll be left with what? My intellect? Who wants to hear a woman talk? Yuck. And they all found that hilarious because they're like, yeah, we don't want to fucking hear you talk, you know? Like, and I'm like proud of myself for being like a difficult woman and saying what needs to be said. And most people, you know, like I'm happy with that. But like they really made me feel unlikable. This clique of people, this group of people, which by the way, cliques don't get far. You need to be in many scenes. You can't just have one little fucking homogenous group. It's like, and they're like, we're gonna love for each other. You know, that's so stupid. But yeah, so I wanted to like I definitely like I would literally write a set. Like I literally remember going there and being like, you male comics are so lucky because, you know, I bet that producers aren't trying to sleep with you. And like and like doing that. I mean, like, listen, if I'm gonna suck a dick for stage time, it's gonna be a famous dick, okay? Like literally being like "Ugh," and like but wanting to be like mean, and Ruben being like, so you don't want to come back ever again? Like he was sort of like but I don't know. Negative experiences I've learned. Like I did a show a couple weeks ago in Astoria, and I'd done it a couple weeks before, and it was a packed show. It was 60, 70 people. I killed 9 minutes off book. I was super proud. And I expected it to be that. And I came with a friend, and then it was just two other audiences, my friend and me. And like the host, another comic,
Yeah.
the producer, and another comic came and closed it out. And like the host just didn't treat it seriously because he was like, I'm just gonna talk to you guys. And he was like, actually, I should have been doing material. You guys are paying attention. And like he was just like, well, there's no people here. Like, and I was just like, ugh. Right, I know. It's like, don't fucking do that. That's such a bad, yeah. And then the like next woman, like, and I went up and I did my set full force, and like they loved it. You know, we had a good time, like, because I like took them seriously. Like it's only gonna be a bad show if you make it a bad show. Like 3 people, that's still 3 people. Like you're still here to entertain 3 people. Like don't just drop the ball because, yeah. So it's more like I really like watched other people, or I watched certain like older female comics who are established but not well liked because they're not in touch with people, you know, like, and being like, I don't want to become like that. Like that is a model of someone I really don't want to become, and I'm grateful that you know, I see what they're doing, and I have perspective, you know, I have perspective, and yeah.
Right. And that is something that, like, I feel compelled if there's 8 people in the audience, like, I think it's your responsibility and the responsibility of everybody on the show. We're going to put on the best show we can for the 8 people, because this is the crowd. The crowd is
It's not
not
your
the
ego.
last
If
crowd.
you're like, the laughs aren't loud enough because there's 8 people, it's like, it's fine. Like,
No,
you're doing the thing.
Destroy those 8 people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And make an incredible memory for
Right.
those 8 people, for
Craft
them
these 8
and
people.
you.
It can be a blessing, you know?
Yeah.
Like when there's 4, I love it when there's like 4 people at my bar. Like, I low-key love it. Because then I can like literally watch their faces and like,
Right.
you know, react to them react.
Right.
Like really be in the moment and personalize the set to them. And it's
For sure.
great.
For sure. And there's a lot of potential for something really special going on. So no, I mean, I also spend a lot of time hosting, and it's like,
Yeah. I really admire you for hosting. It's so difficult. I did it. I lucked out my first time, I did well. Second time I did so poorly.
yeah, it's hard.
It's so hard.
It's really hard.
Really,
Yeah.
it's like taking the bullet of the bullet.
It is. It's really not I mean, if you have a great set as the host, that's a wonderful bonus for you, but that's not really your function.
It's not. Yeah.
And one of my pet peeves is a host who just, no matter how big the crowd is, they just mess up the energy. It's like, what are you doing? Like,
honestly, my bar show was like that last night. We brought an outside, and the second he starts doing jokes, they're pedophile jokes, and I'm like, fuck, this is gonna be awful, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
for sure. You know, Zoe, as I've presented this question, like, this was meant to be kind of honestly a positive question, and I'm not. So I'm going to probably start qualifying this if I don't rewrite it. I wasn't necessarily thinking about like death when I'm using.
I didn't. Don't worry, I didn't interpret it that way.
But you know, I mean, yes, we'd
Yeah,
all.
no, but we're working toward building a comedy legacy. Yeah.
You're right. So what beyond the money, and I mean, let's not pretend like the money's not important, because it certainly is. To be able to do this full time would be absolutely incredible. You know, and I mean, fame brings with it larger audiences and I mean, that's really how I think about fame, is like just access to the people.
The household name is to influence more people.
Right.
You know, like I honestly didn't want to be famous. I feel like so many people are like, I want to be famous. I'm like, I don't. I really like my anonymity. I really like being able to tell someone to fuck off and not like having people write about it. You know, like which makes me sound like a horrible person. No, you know, I like being able to go out on the street and not, you know, like I like that I'm a nobody in a sense. You know, I like that it's low stakes, but I know that there's something very wrong and rotten about our culture and society, and that it needs to be reckoned with. You know, like I want to become as big as Sarah Silverman. Like I want to have that big a voice. I want to have that big a platform. That is my goal. You know, like that's why I really look up to her, because like she was doing it. Like fuck, she was so lucky, man. Like the fact that like at 18 she went to NYU, she studied philosophy, and she started doing stand-up, and her dad was like, you're really good at stand-up. Like why don't you like not enroll in NYU, I'll pay your rent, you do open mics, you sit in on the classes, you like become good. And at the end of those 4 years or 3 years, she was in the writer's room of SNL. And by the way, they didn't take any of her sketch. It was horrible for her self-esteem, right? Like it didn't help her, but like she kept going, right? She persevered. Like she like figured out her brand, she developed her shows. Like she really is a powerhouse, and I really respect that. So my dream comedy legacy is like having as much of a voice as like Carlin, you know, like influencing our culture, being like, this is what's wrong. Like I'm not saying we should do like male dominated communism, but like capitalism is clearly not working for us. Like it's such bullshit. Like there's so many industries, it's, you know, that are like have a vested interest in me, like, no, but capitalism's the only way. You know, I'm like, let women take a crack at socialism. Like, it's always been like male dictators that, of course, they fucked it up, you know? Like that New Zealand prime minister, I don't know her name, I really should. She did it very well. She pulled up, remember how well her COVID response was? Like, if we had like competent women, like not power hungry, but competent women. By the way, Mexico is getting its first female president next year. Yeah. So that's exciting, kind of. Because it's a very violent country, just like ours. Yeah, so that's my goal, is to like, is really just to like emphasize to the world and to people how women and like everyone, but mostly women and like people of like a less privileged background and like people in the minority are rendered more vulnerably situated, as a result of what we do to the other animals, how we disregard and disrespect them just because they're property, just because we're more powerful, just because they're not smart enough, you know, like, you know, that's so messy. Like I know that there's so much that violence begets violence, and that women are literally like assault and rape, you know, like we are just culture, like we're just so much more vulnerable to physical and emotional abuse because of how we treat the other animals. And I've written papers, like I literally dedicated my academic career at Hampshire and at Columbia to these things. And I like forced professors at Columbia to grapple with this, you know. I turned a professor at Hampshire vegetarian, you know, like he was eating chicken, like, and his wife and his son, and he wrote to me like after, and he's like your papers like really convinced, you know, like I really want to have an influence on people. Like, it's not right, it's fucked up. I'm biased though, I was raised vegetarian, so I'm like, we don't need to eat the other animals to be like very strong, you know, like all I take is B12, you know, like, but I know it's like privilege to be able to eat a healthy diet, you know, to like know, like it's but we subsidize the meat industry so much. It wastes so much water. It's polluting the world. Like, it's just so bad for the world. And it's because of the capitalist industry powers that be, you know? So I want to really take a crack at that. And I know it's very ambitious, and I'm not doing it yet because I know I'm not there yet, you know? Like, I've just started really doing feminist stuff in my work. You know, the jokes are really like, the punchline is like, men are my predators, you know, like, and I'm doing that. But I know, like, 6 months in, my best friend, who's like a militant vegan like me, was like, Zoe, you've been doing it 6 months, why don't you try to do veganism now? That's why you got into it, animal rights, right? And I tried and I did it, and sometimes it worked, but sometimes it didn't. And I'm like, I can't build a career if I'm like antagonized, you know, like, yeah, I'm playing long game very much.
I don't want to pander to you. I very early into all of this, especially when I was doing way more mics than shows. And I mean, I'm very lucky right now. Like I'm sort of doing exactly what you're talking about, which is like I have regular show opportunities. So I'm developing a lot of material in real time in shows. And it's like, that's a great luxury. But I mean, as a producer, I love balancing. I try to get an equal number of men and women on my shows.
Yeah.
And like when I was more of an open micer, I mean, it's not like I'm done. It's not like I'm above it. Just I'm lucky to be where I'm at this moment. It's kind of like,
You've seen, you know, you earned that.
How many women are in the room? Because like, there's a certain like,
so hard open mics when you're the only woman. And
how many angry male comedians talking about their penises are on this mic? And so I mean, and that's not, there have certainly been some women comedians that I'm just like, oh, that was horrible. So I mean, nothing's a given.
Yeah.
But
there's many more worse men. Yeah.
So I've always,
you know, like, women get out quickly if they can't figure out how to get good. Like, men just like stay in the scene. So many male comments are like, should I quit? And I'm like, no.
oh, just keep going. I mean, get out. Yeah, there's a door.
Yeah.
All right. So 10 minutes. We certainly don't have to fill the whole time, but why don't you kind of let us know where we can follow you? Remind us one more time of everything you've got, you know, going on. We'll certainly support that in the text under the episode. Just kind of let us know where you're at and where to follow you and how to keep up with you.
Cool. Yeah. So right now, by the way, full disclaimer, I only got on Instagram this year, the beginning of this year. I got on social, because I was like an academic. I like had the luxury of just being on LinkedIn. And like day one of open mic, like I remember like Barry at like Barry, at my first open mic on Juneteenth being like, hey girl, if you on Instagram, like I'll follow you. And I was like, I'm not. And she's like, oh, that matters. Like so many comics were like, that matters. Like you gotta get on the gram.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand the importance. And now I'm like, half my life is the gram. Like I hate it, but like Emma Willman started following me this week. That's like huge. Nice. She liked one of my reels. That's huge. She'll do my show. Like if I get, good enough one off the ground, yeah. Like the gram is how you connect with people. Like you can't ask these big comics for their number, but right. You can add them on Insta and so I'm on Instagram. It's a long way of putting it. Whatever. Zoe Levy comedian. Yeah. Okay. Is my handle. I'm signing.
Yes, and we'll make sure we have that. And then remind us again, your weekly schedule as far as shows and mics and locations.
Right. So this Saturday, it sucks. I was supposed to be on a show tonight in Brooklyn, and then I got asked to nanny, and then hang on, someone's calling me, and then I was asked to nanny, and I was like, okay, it's deep Brooklyn, and like. Scrubby washer, like yeah. I need the money more than the,
Yep.
And I recommend a friend, a female comic, and she's doing it. And this morning I get a text that's like, hey, we don't need you. I'm like, fuck.
Oh man.
But I'm turning it around because I'm going to the stand at 9. I'm seeing my good friend Alex Rabano, and I'm going to try and connect with Mark Norman and be like, do my show. It's good enough, So I'm like turning it into a blessing, right? Like it's really about like jumping on every networking. Like my friend produced a show that had Ari Shaffir, right? I went there. I went and I met Ari Shaffir in the green room at New York Comic Club. And I was like, do my show. And now I have his number, like I'm very lucky. He'll do my show in December. He's touring this month. But like, it's really all about connections. And I know that I'm at an advantage for like not, for being a woman. Like I do have an advantage there. Because there are a lot of men, like it helps to be a woman, but then you have to deal with the sexual harassment of being a woman. So it's a double-edged sword. Like it's, yeah. So I really want to promote the show November 26th, Sunday, 8 p.m. Whiskey Cellar, East Village, super, super cute. It's you produce a great show there that I've been on. It's a small space. Like we're only gonna have a certain amount of seats, but the audience gets to decide. And I think that's so cool because I feel like the audience doesn't really get to say a lot, like they're really just like passive audience members, but they get to be like active and like decide. And I think it's, like we're really like, we really have to like, I'm like, we're gonna get you on soon. Like really have to like get people, the same like level. So like they both have a chance, or like my bar show at Iggy's is in 2 weeks. It's on the 21st. If Ashley Gavin is in town, she's gonna do it because she wants to. Yeah, which is cool and interesting and I worked her show Sunday night, which is not to say I performed. I like did set up. It was so funny because like during the show, she was like, I employ queer youth. And like, I'm tragically straight. Like my like queer friend was like, hey, I can't. Can you cover for me? And I was like, yeah, totally. Like, sounds great. Emma will be like, love it, And like she said queer youth through the show. And then like at the end of the show, I'm like breaking things down and like carrying like 8 chairs like to the back room. And I hear a couple guys like, yeah, clearly she's a lesbian about me. I didn't correct them. I was like, I don't give a shit. It was so funny. I was like, oh, because I have a work ethic, you think I'm a lesbian? Like, don't kick straight. Some of us have work. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So if you're a comic, come to my mic Monday night. I'm trying to make it, but we need to grow it. 8 p.m. Whiskey Cellar, Monday nights, every Monday. My mic at West Side is great. Wednesday, it's a great vibe. A lot of women, all the women who come are like, this is my favorite mic in the city. Like, this is great vibes. Like, I don't put up with, like, I remember like a month ago, a guy like during a set was like, yes, that was a 6, that was a 7. At the end of the set, I got up and I was like, yeah, guys, quickest way to piss me off is by ranking women, and I like shut it down. Like today, a comic had like the most disgusting act out about being like, about seeing a kimono dragon eat a pig, and it was the most disgusting. Like it was just gross, and there was no purpose to it. And at the end, I was like, "Guys, I'm trying to quit cigarettes. Like, don't talk about this. Is not a clean mic, but don't talk about animal abuse. Like that's gonna really make me want, yeah. So there's that. So yeah, I have 2 mics. I have 2 shows. I'm trying to get a third one off the ground with Vishal. He's great. He's a great comic, and he's a great following. And he gets the social media game in a way I don't. And he's going to do the marketing that I don't know how to do. So that's really great. And I'm going to do like all the, I offered, like I was totally like, I will do, you know, he's a real job at Google. He's like an engineer at Google. I'm like, I will do all the work. Like you just have to like tell your people and show up, you know? Yeah. So I'm excited for that show to get off the ground. We're trying to secure the stand, which I know is arrogant, but like, yeah, like, you know, if our Shafir will do the show, we'll headline it, you know, yeah. I have a chance. Awesome. That's why I'm trying to meet Mark Norman tonight at the stand to be like, will you do my show? Or, you know, like in the future. I know your wife. She's lovely. She is. May. Not super well. It's not like we're friends, but I know her. I'm sure we'll say hi to each other at holiday parties in December. You know? Yeah. So it's just like being in the world, you know. Thank you so much, Bryan.
Well, thank you, Zoe. So again, for everybody watching and listening, we'll make sure that everything Zoe just went over is available to you. And probably the easiest way is to follow her on Instagram. And then I'm sure you'll get all those, but we'll have those individual, Facebook, you know, yeah, all of that. So make sure we're following Zoe and supporting her in all things. Again, just to wrap up something Zoe was saying, and I mean, a lesson I learned recently, you know, as a producer and or a host, you know, super important to have rules. And it's like, I'm an educator.
For men.
Yeah. And I'm an educator by day. So sometimes it's like, I don't want to have a rule, you know, I do comedy, so I don't have to do rule, but like, no, that was a learning somewhat recently for me, is like, no, I gotta make this really explicit, like no sexual harassment, audience or other comics. I haven't been saying that. And it's like, no, let's just make that one of the other things. Like I'm not going to dictate anybody's material, but let's just put this on the table and let's just get agreement so that we don't have to deal with anything like that from anybody. And I think when we're real explicit about expectations, some people are going to be who they are, but, you know, hopefully we can kind of cut down on bad behavior the majority of the time. And that was something, a show you were on and a lesson that I kind of took away. And it's, I know we discussed it, but like that became a thing.
And I dealt with it by publicly shaming him because it was an all female audience and it was an all black all female audience. So I like turned to them and I was like, ladies, don't you love it when a man inquires about your pubic hair? You know, like it's fucking ridiculous, you know, for someone to do that. Like, and another comic was like, yeah, but it's worked from a bunch, you know, that's why he does it. Like it's worked. Like he's got laughs, you know, and technically that's the golden rule. If you get laughs, but it's like, I'm not going to do fat jokes just because it gets laughs. Like I have moral standards.
Right. And so, you know, Zoe's done a bunch of my show. When I produce something, usually there's a group thread on Instagram and I probably over provide information. It's just kind of my nature. And so like one of the things
other producers, you're like, how much time? Where is it? When is it?
And these are all things that like I've worked with people and it's like, you
learn from what not to do.
Did you want to give any information about this show that you're producing in a couple of hours, like that I'm supposed to be doing? So I'm probably the opposite, but right after, I mean, that became a thing that I send with all the usual, like, hey, I'm not here to censor anybody's material, but the one thing we're going to have to agree on is like no sexual harassment, you know, from either men to women, women to men, men to men, women to women. Like let's just not do that, period, you know. So that became one of those things. Anyways, Zoe, thank you so much for a great conversation and a great episode. Thank you for being here and being awesome. And I look forward to, you know, the next. Zoe throws these amazing comedian cocktail parties and mixers.
We have a few normal people just because we need to, you know, it can't be all comics, but
right.
I've been crafting a list, honestly, for the winter season. So
And the civilians she invites always super cool.
Oh,
And
I
I've
only invite
great,
lovely comics is the trick. Like the civilians are gonna be nice, but like
yeah,
you have to be like,
yeah,
yeah, comics cool and funny, but do I trust them and
right.
like with the civilians?
Yeah. Can they be a human being for an
Right.
evening? So
Right.
yeah.
Right. They're gonna
And
be
so
rude
I've
second they have one beer in them,
right.
No beer.
Right. No filter anymore after the single beer.
I hate when like someone tries to get someone else in and I have to be like, no.
Right.
Like they're like, they have nothing going on. I'm like, that's their fault. Like
have
there's like
they have they
this is
thought
a
about why
30
that
person
is?
fucking capped. Okay. Like I expect 3 to 5 people to drop out. Damn, that's fine. There's still 25 of us, it's great. It's lovely. Okay.
Absolutely.
I have to run to an appointment in a minute. Otherwise this would have gone on for 2 more hours.
For sure. So Zoe, thank you so much. And everybody, please make sure you are liking where you can like and follow where you can follow. And we thank Zoe Levy for an absolutely incredible episode. I've been Bryan Stoops. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us on another episode of the 96 Person Bringer podcast. Everybody be well. And until next time.